I think the recording has begun. Let me reshare the slide. Will just wait. Okay, I think Aziza is back here. Before we start the class, I would like to tell Aziza and the rest of you also that I recorded this session yesterday, but the recording is only of like 25 minutes. I'll put that also on LMS, but I have tried to make some changes in my Zoom app, and I hope we are able to record the full session today. Okay, I have made some payments to buy some extra time on Zoom, so I hope we will have a better recording, and I'll try to put more material and these recordings on your LMS. Okay, and I don't have any idea if Aziza marked the attendance. I asked Aziza, I asked you to just take a picture of the participants that are appearing on the, I think, the right side of the panel. Okay, so okay, now getting back to our lecture. Um, we are talking about the different definitions. I sent you a book, and in the introductory section, you must have come across different definitions. Some of you might have Googled about applied linguistics, and I told you that applied linguistics can mean a lot of things for a lot of people and different things to different people. Everyone has a perspective. Applied linguistic is actually a very broad field. Some of the linguists have tried to narrow it down. Now, my question is that you are still putting on the chat, and I'm not really getting a satisfactory answer, is what is common amongst all those definitions? Just one thing which is common and without which applied linguistic uh, remains incomplete, I would say. Okay, Naila Aslam is right to an extent. I'm just asking about one thing, okay? Do not write a lot of things. I'm just asking about one thing. Now, as someone says, language application, Kaswa, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, language application itself is a very broad term, okay? You know, applied linguistics has to do with language, but linguistics in general is about language. So this does not differentiate applied linguistics from the rest of the branches of linguistics. Every branch in every field of linguistics, of course, deals with the language. So I, I don't take that answer that it's about language only. It can be about language problems, but language problems are so huge. I mean, they are so varied. There are so many that we need to restrict to some problem that is prevalent in most of the societies. Okay, applied linguistics addresses such one single problem that many of the societies or many of the communities, many of the countries face. Okay, like I would say most of them. So what is that? Okay, Kanis Raza is close. She's right. Quite right. Who else? Okay, I wonder after reading so many definitions, you could not find out what is common amongst all those definitions. One thing that you must have found, and even if you notice what people have written in the chat section about the definition of applied linguistics, language teaching. Okay, problems related to language teaching and learning. That remains the core of applied linguistics. Okay, if you talk about language problems, those can be varied, those can be different, but this one, teaching and learning of second language, basically deals with the second language. Now if you broaden this field, of course language acquisitions comes in, but basically applied linguistics deals with teaching and learning of the second language or the foreign language. Okay. What's the difference between second language and foreign language? Start putting your answers in the chat section, please. Difference, let me put the question. Okay, who is this? Shiza Khan, morphology, syntax, what do you mean by this? Nasima Wali, grammar. Applied linguistics deals with grammar distantly, yes, but not, I'm asking about its core concern. The core concern of applied linguistics is not morphology, it's not syntax. Shiza? Okay, let me put the question. Since I've already asked you, and very soon I'll be taking your quizzes also. Let me check how that is possible online, but I'll be giving you the quizzes very, very soon. So, keep reading. I'll give you the readings for today, for the next class also, right? Now, what you have what I expect you to have read is your, first chapter, especially the definition sections, and most of you, I think, have consulted the book for the definition. That's fine. Okay, my question is, it deals with both. Applied linguistics deals with both. And I've already told you that these two terms are interchangeable also. But as students of linguistics and of applied linguistics, you should know the difference, the subtle difference between the two terms. Arfa, I don't have to repeat my question. I have actually put it down. If you just scroll up, you'll be getting my message to its difference between second language and foreign language. That's correct. Mazib, your definition is correct. Can we move on? If you people can read Mazib's definition, she's quite right. Sayyida Sharaf, what do you mean by foreign language? I mean, foreign language is the native language. Second language is not the native language. Both are native language, but of some other people, not yours. Okay, Faryal Bari is right. Amna Sayed, foreign language that we learn consciously. We are not unconscious when we are learning the second language, please. Second language is learned from the surroundings, really? What are language centers for then? Who is this? Alpha Batul. Okay, some of you have put the definitions right. Okay, Yasmin Sana, please listen to the lecture carefully, right? Shehzadi Fiza says second language is not our mother tongue and used in specific areas where the learners live. So foreign language is our mother tongue then. Do you want to say that? Okay, fine. Some of the definitions are right. Okay. Do not take all these definitions as correct. Only Mazeb's definition, I think, and few more might be correct. You can look at those, and I'm repeating what I wanted to say. Okay. Now let me put it again. I've already told you the difference between a second language and the foreign language. Now, in case of Pakistan, right? Um, English happens to be the second language. Now, second language is an essential language in a bilingual society. Second language can be a part of language planning and policy because it's the working language in a country, right? Whereas a foreign language is not the essential language, the necessary language. You can go around your daily task without learning a foreign language. Okay, learning a foreign language might be an option. It is also done with certain purposes in mind, but that is not essential for living in a bilingual society. Okay, for instance, when we say that English is a second language, we mean that it has some status in our society. It is a co-official language. Till now, it is official and co-official language with Urdu. So you need it on daily basis. Like you have to apply at places for the job. You need to have an application in English. Okay. For instance, if you're applying for an ID card in Nadra, everything that you fill in an online application, most part of the application is in English. Okay, so you use internet. You cannot use it in Chinese. You use it in English. There is an option for Chinese, but since Chinese is a foreign language for you, till now, it is going to get better status in the coming years, since since the CPAT is going on. But right now, English is our second language. Okay, I have given you examples of countries who are doing well in their own language. Most of the monolingual countries do not have English as a second language. English for them happens to be a foreign language. For instance, German and French is a foreign language for us, and English is a second language for us. Other than that, there is one more difference. If you have read the chapter, if we learn a language abroad, um, for instance, if we learn English in some other country, that happens to be a foreign language for us, because it really depends where we are learning the language and what is the status of that particular language in that particular country. For instance, if you are learning English in Europe, or if you are learning English in America, then that becomes a foreign language too, right? So you're learning a foreign language in a foreign country. Okay, so these are subtle differences. Otherwise, I have told you that when we talk about applied linguistics, the common field that we refer to is language teaching and learning, second language teaching and learning. And I've shared the acronyms with you also: TEFL, teaching of English as a foreign language, and TESL, teaching of English as a second language. So all of these have been used interchangeably, and right now we go with ESL. Okay, ELT, sorry, English language teaching. So without mentioning whether second language or a foreign language, we now use the term ELT that caters to both the second language or the foreign language, right? So these are subtle differences. Otherwise, we used to have TEFL courses which were similar in content with the TEFL courses, TEFL and TESL. So these were interchangeable terms, right? So basically, what we have learned up till now, that applied linguistics means many things to many people, but the definition needs to be narrowed down. So if we narrow down the definition, we need to look at what is common amongst different definitions, and you will find out that language teaching and learning is the common thing in all the definitions of applied linguistics. No definition would be devoid of this field um, of linguistics to complete the definition of applied linguistics. Okay, and this is what we are going to look at through different linguists also. Let me see if there are some participants to be added now. Okay. Okay, Mazib is unable to listen to me. Mazib, there must be something wrong at your end, because most of you are able to listen to me. You can hear me. Please fix it up, okay, at your end. Okay. Now, moving on to, so, when you read a number of definitions, it gets a little confusing also. What applied linguistics is, what fields of linguistics does it cater to, what is problem solving in applied linguistics. So now we can get, according to some of the linguists, we can get a clearer picture of applied linguistics if we turn our attention away from the source. Now, what are the sources of applied linguistics, from where it has come into existence? Applied linguistics has come into existence from a number of fields, okay? From a number of fields which are not the fields of linguistics. For instance, it has come into existence from sociology, from psychology, from neurology, and then coming to the problems, language problems associated, then we can say that it has come into being from sociolinguistics, from psycholinguistics, from neurolinguistics, from forensic linguistics, from corpus linguistics, you name the field. And there are multiple sources from where it has originated. And when we talk about language teaching itself has its sources in psycholinguistics. Okay, you must have read a lot of theories about language learning. So applied linguistics has these sources of origin. So the sources are so immense. The number is huge from where it has originated. Therefore, the field becomes very broad, and there is a need to narrow it down. So what the linguists suggest in the slide that you are looking at, we need to turn our attention away from the source, okay? And we need to see what is the target, what eventually applied linguistics would do for us, what would it equip us with, what skills it would give us, okay? What would be the purpose, what is the target, what is the aim, goal, and objective of applied linguistics, okay? So the target cannot be so wide, right? The sources, its origin can be from varied fields, but the target has to be narrow. The target cannot be so wide, okay? So the target cannot be everything and anything related to language. As I told you, that someone has put, in the definition of grammar. Grammar distantly, I would say, becomes a part of applied linguistics, but not closely. Okay, we need to differentiate every problem related to language, and everything related to language cannot be a part of applied linguistics. Otherwise, nothing would remain outside applied linguistics, and that would be confusing for many of the applied linguistics, for even the students of applied linguistics. So today what we are going to do, we are going to narrow it down. And if you have come across your syllabus, in the curriculum of HEC, we are given a narrowed field of applied linguistics, where our focus would remain on what was previously called as TESOL. We would be looking at the methods of language teaching, some theories of language, theories of language learning, syllabus designing, maybe testing also. So that's why we are going. Today we'll try to understand applied linguistics in its narrowest sense, right? And even in its narrow sense, you would see that so many fields, so many domains are added to, even when we are narrowing the field down for applied linguistics. Okay, so one suggestion is that do not go to the source. If you go to the source, that means applied linguistics caters to all these branches of knowledge, right? Just not of linguistics, but of knowledge. So we need to look at its aim, its objective, what it equips us with, what actually it does through its research. I told you that applied linguistics basically is a research-based subject. Okay, why is it research-based? Because we call applied linguistics as problem solving. So any subject that solves problem, that means a great area of research is available in that particular field, that it can address the problems and it can present the solutions. Okay, it is not necessary that all problems can be solved through research, but still those can be lessened. Okay, those can be lessened by the end of any kind of research. Right now we are talking about applied linguistics. So one of the ways of narrowing this very broad field of applied linguistics is not to look at the sources, its origin, the branches, the fields, the domains of knowledge that applied linguistics has come from, but to focus on its aims and objectives. Okay, what it equips us with, what we get at the end, what would be the end result of applied linguistics, what kind of problems that are common in all communities. See, when I say that one common thing that you have found in most of the definition is language teaching and learning. So you observe that no societies or communities are without these problems, because language is being taught in every country. Okay. See, we are taught Urdu and we are taught English. Okay. Even if we are native speakers of Urdu, we learn the language. So every country teaches language to its children in schools and later on, so French is always taught, Latin used to be taught, right? Previously, German is taught. All languages are available for teaching. All developed languages, I would say, all standardized languages are available for teaching. They have their syllabus, they have their trained teachers also, they have their institutions also, and that really depends on any country's policy, how far that language would be taught. Okay, whose mic is on? Okay, I have to mute you again and again. Please check your mic remains off. It would improve your internet connectivity and my voice would not be distorted. There wouldn't be any disconnection. Okay, now Gordon presents another solution. He directly says that if we focus on language teaching, we can narrow down the field of applied linguistics. Okay, now language teaching itself, according to Corder, 1973, he says that even if we include just the field of teaching, English language teaching, it can also include all these fields are related to language teaching. For example, speech therapy. As I told you that there are speech problems, okay? So, okay, before I go on, I would like you to tell me the difference between stammering and stuttering. These are speech disorders and there are therapies available for them. My question is, and I'm putting this in the chat also, what is the difference between stammering and stuttering? I think I'm spelling it correctly. Okay, quickly, just in 2 minutes, tell me the difference, if you know the difference of stammering and stuttering. These are also speech disorders. While we are talking about speech therapy, so we are also talking about speech disorders. Quickly. Okay, some people do not have an idea. Okay. Okay, you may find this out, stammering and stuttering. These are two different speech problems. You must have noticed around some of the children have these problems of stuttering and stammering. Now, one has to do with, breaking of speech. Some people cannot have a coherent speech, right? Not exactly coherent, but there's a break in their sentences. Okay, and stuttering is breaking of the sentences, and stammering is not pronouncing some of the phonemes, unable to pronounce some of the phonemes. Okay, so I guess one is if in Urdu we say एक तोतले होते हैं और एक what is the word कुछ लोग हकलाते हैं और कुछ लोग तोतले होते हैं, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay, so one is unable to speak some of the phonemes, the other is break in speech, and if you observe, you must have come across some of the kids have this problem. Some adults can also have this problem. Then so this also comes in language teaching, right? So language teaching is just not what commonly we observe what is going on in the classrooms, language centers, or in our classroom, but it has to do with the speech therapy also. There are speech problems, okay? There are a number of aphasia that we study in neurolinguistics also, in psycholinguistics too. So then there are speech therapists, and all of this, this includes, I not include, but this comes in language teaching. Speech therapy itself is to learn how to teach a language to children who have speech problems, okay? Any kind of speech problem, but there are speech therapists. Now, speech therapists are also linguists, okay? These are trained people to teach language. They do certain therapies. Of course, I do not have a detailed idea of what kind of therapies, what kind of exercises or practices they do with the patients, or with people who have these speech problems. But what I would want to say is, speech therapy is also part of applied linguistics, because this is directly related to language teaching. Okay. Then translations, again, a part of language teaching. We learn to translate. Now there are newer subjects also related to translation studies. These are actually and formally taught to the students. So translation is a part of applied linguistics, but through language teaching. Okay. And then language planning and policy making are a part of applied linguistics, but again through language teaching. Okay. So what Corder says, that even if we narrow the definition of applied linguistics, or if we try to narrow down the field of applied linguistics for better understanding, and we only include language teaching, even then so many other domains get entered to this particular field. Okay, that includes speech therapy, translation, language policy and planning, all of these. The problems related to these areas actually are related to language teaching. Okay, so all of these that Corder names the field have connection to language teaching. Therefore, these are part of applied linguistics. Okay. Mazev's asked me if there is any treatment for these disorders. I have not specialized in speech therapy, but there is a separate degree in linguistics for speech therapists. There are some of the universities in Islamabad, I have heard that they offer this degree in linguistics also by speech therapy. So they are special speech therapists, and they have jobs also where they give practice exercises, and they train children to speak, or they try to improve speech among children who have this problem in language speech. Okay. Anyway, so this is so there we have studied about till now we have studied about two ways of narrowing it down. One is to get away from the source, focus on the target. The other is to limit it to language teaching only, and the fields that are associated with language teaching should be included in applied linguistics, and then nothing else, nothing that is beyond these fields. Okay, this is another way of narrowing this field down. Now, applied linguistics is not a very old domain of knowledge. Okay, because it came into existence in the 1950s. A separate branch is applied linguistics. Otherwise, even till 1960s and 1970s, whenever people talked about language teaching, they meant applied linguistics. Okay, so those two terms were taken as interchangeably. So the field till 1960s and 70s was so restricted to language teaching that it was taken for granted. If anyone has written a paper about language teaching, the paper automatically fell into applied linguistics, okay, to the domain of applied linguistics. So it wasn't even a question. So when Edinburgh course in applied linguistics started, and these are a set of series of books which have different papers published in the domain of applied linguistics. So people, when they asked for the papers related to the field of applied linguistics, most of the paper that this journal received was about language teaching. So they just took it for granted. Anything that is related to language teaching is applied linguistics. Okay. And at that time, how language teaching became very, very important. the history goes to the world wars, right? Now, what happened is when we would be doing language teaching methods, we would also look at the origin of methods. For instance, audiolingual method came into existence after the Second World War. Now, what happened was that the soldiers who went abroad to fight the war, they had problems with the language. Okay, they did not know the language of that country, and it was very important for the armies to learn that language. So when the army was taught through audiolingual method, okay, it's a method based on structural view of the language. Okay, we are going to do those theories also, theories of the language and theories of language teaching. And I already told you that no method is without a theory. Okay, every method has its foundation embedded in some psycholinguistics theory. So no method is constructed or no method has been designed without research, right? Of course, the theory comes into being after research. So all these methods are based on some kind of perspective, some kind of theory. Every method has a theoretical underpinning. I've already told you. Now, what happened? They found out when they wanted to teach their soldiers the second language or the language of the other country, they found out that they did not have trained teachers. Okay, and there were no trainers, there were no supervisors who could teach the other language in a systematic way, following certain kind of a method. Okay, now if I ask you to teach me your native language, you're not trained to teach me. Okay, you would just tell me a few, you would ask me, probably you would ask me to learn few frequently used sentences in your culture. Okay, so this is how I or you would teach our native language to people, because we are not trained in teaching native language or the languages that we speak, right? But we are trained in English language teaching. Okay, we have syllabus, established syllabus. We know that a person needs to know some of the basic structures. Okay, this is how we learn the language, and we might teach in a similar way. Some of you would opt excuse me, for translations also, okay, following certain method. But what I want you to say is language teaching follows certain kind of methodology. It's not a random kind of an exercise. Okay, so what happened was after the Second World War, this branch of language teaching expanded, right? And audiolingual method came into existence after that. Okay, before audiolingual method, there was direct method. Direct method did not make use, and before direct method, it was grammar translation method, where mother tongue was used in teaching of the second language. Then there was a direct method when no other language other than the target language was spoken in the classrooms. Okay, the students were not allowed to speak in their mother tongue, right? Then came the audiolingual method, and that was related to war times and to the soldiers. So it was found out that they did not have teachers, they did not have trained staff to teach the army the other language. So then this field expanded, and then there was a realization that the field of language teaching is very significant. Okay, there is a need of trained teachers, there is a need of trainers, there is a need of supervisors who should have just not the knowledge of the language, but who should know, who should be trained in teaching the language also. So this gap was filled by applied linguistics. Okay, and from that time onwards, applied linguistics narrowly was language teaching, and then the field kept on expanding because it started to cater other language teaching problems like I named some of them, like speech therapy, and then there was translation studies, and then there was language policy and planning. Kaplan has talked about these. So this is these were the times. It came into being in the 1950s, 60s, 60s and 70s took this term applied linguistics just for granted, and they actually referred to language teaching, but it wasn't explicitly said. But the field expanded during the war times, when there was a realization that there is a need for proper teaching of the second language, and there's a need for proper trained people to do the task, and it could not be taken as something very, very random. So the field became important also, and it expanded too. Okay. Okay, what are people saying? Let me check. Okay, she's asking about audiolingual method. We will have a separate class for every method. Okay, right now we are, this week was for the introduction of applied linguistics. From the next week, we'll be doing some theories also and the methods related to those. Okay. Okay. So now, since then, applied linguistics has undergone a significant broadening of its scope, and now it contributes its theoretical perspective to a range of areas. Okay, so from there, starting from language teaching, it moved to all the related branches of language teaching, and then it expanded to solving more problems of language around in the society. Okay, now applied linguistics in a way, now that we have talked about how it started to broaden, now it encompasses language acquisition, L1 and L2, psycholinguistics, neurolinguistics, language teaching for sure, sociolinguistics, humor studies, pragmatics, discourse analysis, rhetoric, text processing, translation, computational linguistics, machine translation, corpus linguistics, language control, dialectology. Okay, so now the field is so broad that it encompasses all of these branches of linguistics also. Now my next question is, how many of these branches do you know about that you are seeing in the slides, and I've read it out for you? So how many fields do you know about? Or by knowing about, I do not expect you to know these fields in detail, but how many of these terms have you heard, and you have a rough understanding of what these actually are? For instance, psycholinguistics you must have done in detail, sociolinguistics you must have done in detail. So which other fields do you know about? Let's go to the chat section, and let me put this. Do you have a class now with Ma'am Saleha? Kurutlan, do you have a class with Ma'am Saleha? Oh, I've taken more time of yours. Is Ramsha taking classes online? Is she taking classes online? Right. Okay, so I have to give you some homework also. Okay, my homework is, I would like you to just find out all of these branches of linguistics that are part of applied linguistics. Okay, applied linguistics encompasses all of these branches. So your next homework is, otherwise I had to give you some more homework, but it's okay. That's the beginning. Let's make the things easy. So what I would like you to do is to find out what these fields are about. Okay, I hope everyone is listening. Aziza, please take a picture of the participants. Korotulan, you have questions also? Okay, Leave the questions for me here in the chat. Leave the questions for me in the chat. Those would be recorded also, and in the next session, I'll answer your questions first, and then I'm going to move on to the next lecture. Quickly put your questions. Korotalan, you have a question. A person in the beginning of the lecture had a question. Please put your questions down. Yeah, the broader fields. The slides that I hope my slide is being shared, the fields that are mentioned in the slides, and I have read it for you. I want you to, explore them. Explore them in a way that at least you have a rough idea of what these fields are about. Okay. Okay, let me write your homework for you. Uh, I hope Aziza has taken the pick. Those who do not have a question can just leave the class and you may join the other class now. I am writing your homework. I've written the homework. You don't need to ask me to repeat it. It's here for everyone, okay? Yeah, you need to find out about these fields that you are seeing on the slides. Okay, Gurutalan has put some good question, okay? I'll answer that according to the language planning and policy of the country. Okay, people start leaving, you have to rush for another class. I'll leave your questions. I'll keep on reading because I don't have a class after this. Okay. Mazeb has a lot of questions. Okay, Mazeb, you can just put it down here. And please be quick because other teachers always complain that I take more time. Just let me put the recording.